Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello and welcome to Authors on Mission, the podcast committed to delving into top-tier insights and strategies employed by established experts to achieve success while writing a book about it. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, Chief Creative Officer here at Authors on Mission, and I'm thrilled to welcome Steven Eisenberg, a science educator with 30 years of experience who has made a fascinating transition to author and thought leader in AI ethics. Steven's newest book, Can You Rape a Robot? Morality, Rights, and the Rise of Conscious Machines, tackles one of the most pressing questions of our technological age. What moral consideration might we owe to the intelligent machines we create? We're going to be diving into that along with the writing process and much more on today's episode. Without further ado, Steven, welcome to the Authors on Mission podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Looking forward to talking all about it. So Steven, right before we began our recording today, I was kind of joking with you about the title of your book and how it's it's unique, but also so on point these days because, the idea of AI and robotics and advanced technology is such a huge topic these days. So can you share a little bit about that title? I'm really interested to know a little bit more.
Well, it's taken from the book. The book talks about robot rights. It's mainly about the concept of robot rights and question of which human rights that people give themselves, will we eventually have to give to robots as well. One of them is the concept of autonomy, which refers to the fact that people have the right to lead their own lives, to make their own decisions and their own choices, which includes, the right to, I forget the wording. Anyway, the right to make choices about our lives. So someone has the right to approve of something that you do to them, or they have the right to refuse, right? So within that is the idea that, for humans, rape is considered a crime.
Of course.
You are imposing yourself upon another person. They have the right to refuse, to accept or refuse. So I use that for the title of the book because it's a provocative title and it gets people's attention.
Right.
And you get that kind of reaction, like you told me, like you
that
laugh.
It does, yeah.
Laugh,
but I see where
right?
you're going.
So that was the idea: get people's attention, and you'll get different responses. I've had people going, "What? Huh?" And I've had people laughing because they think it's funny. So that was the main idea: to get people's attention and to prove the point, or to relate to the content of the book, which is this idea of robot rights. So it's one of the rights talked about in the book, the right of autonomy.
Right, and I see what you mean by that. And I can see how, perhaps some of these discussions go into the idea of, well, we're asking these robots to do so many things for us all the time. We're programming them to do that. But I guess you're right. At which point are we going to have to wonder, do they actually want to keep answering all of our questions on ChatGPT, no matter how silly it is, right? So I can see, where you might be going with this. And I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about some of these questions that come up. One big thing that you talk about, of course, is robot ethics and AI ethics. So I'm wondering, is there a distinction between the two, between robot ethics and AI ethics?
Well, robot ethics is really an extension of AI ethics. The AI ethics these days refers to how we use artificial intelligence, what rules do we impose on it, what limits do we impose on it, what safety measures do we impose on AI. And robot ethics is basically the same, except that it refers specifically to machines that, perform specific tasks, not just the computers and the software that we rely on these days, but machines as well, because machines can cause harm. If you have a robot in your life, a machine in your life, it can be dangerous. If it's given artificial intelligence, then what other things we have to take into consideration? We have to impose extra limits because robots are machines that can be, we can be interacting on a day-to-day basis with, and then we have to then impose upon those robots or to put in place safety measures. So robot ethics is really just an extension of AI ethics, where we have to put in additional protections to make sure robots do not harm people.
Right, understood. And I can see how this is kind of challenging because, a lot of times we even think to ourselves, okay, it's just a robot, it's just a machine. So do you think that society is prepared to reconsider what it means to be human in light of all this advancing AI? I know this is a huge question in your book, and the reason I'm asking this is because, just so everyone can get a good idea of what to be prepared for when they're diving into this.
The world is not prepared.
No.
No,
We're
people
still
don't even think about it.
right.
Most people, there are those experts in the artificial intelligence field for whom this is a serious concern and a serious subject of investigation. The world in general, nobody, I'm sure, the average person does not think about this problem. There are people becoming, the general public is becoming more and more concerned about the intrusion of AI and, technology in general on our privacy and our security. But people don't see robots or machines with true artificial intelligence yet in their day-to-day lives. They see it as something that maybe it's a subject for science fiction or way in the future. So
Right.
you don't see anybody, or you don't get any sense that the general public's really even thinking about the idea. I do believe that at least within a generation, it's going to become a very important issue. Maybe in the next 10 or 20 years, it's hard to predict, but it's in the foreseeable future. So right now, the concept of robot rights is only in the realm of some experts in artificial intelligence even thinking about it.
Right. Yeah. And I see what you mean, especially in the book when I was looking through it. One quote that you said is that you hope that the audience reads this with an open mind and a critical eye. And I can see what you mean by that, because there are some misconceptions that people might have about, how advanced these systems are becoming now and why it is important for us to consider these, topics. I can see how this is something that you really set out to tackle in your book.
Well, like I try to say in the book, it's coming. I start out with the expression that humanity is on the threshold of a new ethical frontier. There is going to come a point in the not too distant future where we have to start seriously considering these ideas. Artificial intelligence is going to advance, technology is going to advance. Eventually, we will get to the point where we will have conscious machines that are aware of themselves, aware of their existence, aware of the world around them. At that point, we have to ask ourselves, now, what are our moral obligations to these machines? If they have the qualities of humans, then are we obligated to treat them as people? Because what separates humans from anything else in the world, from other animals, certainly from inanimate objects, is that we are conscious. We are aware of ourselves. We are aware of our own thoughts. We have needs, desires, wants, emotions. Once those qualities are in machines, they basically have the same cognitive processes that people have, that humans have. We give ourselves human rights because we recognize that all humans have these capabilities. They have consciousness, they have emotions, they are aware of themselves. Humans can feel pain and joy, they can suffer in many ways. Once machines have those same qualities, they are essentially human.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I guess in your book, you perhaps define what these qualities might be. Would I be correct in assuming so? And giving us sort of tips to look out for when would be time to kind of start laying out these regulations and things to think about?
Right,
Yeah, go
in the
ahead.
book, I go over all this. I focus on what makes us human. What is it that distinguishes us from other living things? And it's our capacity for thought, our capacity for reflection, our ability to abstract, our self-awareness, most of all, and our emotions.
Right.
That's what defines us as human. Okay. So if something else has the exact same qualities, are we then required to define them as people as well? And if they are people, must we then treat them the same we treat any other person?
Right. Yeah, and that's, a whole other ballpark to consider. So to anybody listening today, I mean, we've all dabbled in these, new technology, especially with ChatGPT and AI. I don't know how many times I asked ChatGPT, like, to convert a time zone for me or to answer an email, even little things like that. But I can see how, when we do put down these definitions, it's going to be, something to think about because, come on, I mean, if you were a human being asked all the time these silly questions like we ask robots, they'll be getting pretty sick of it after a while. So I can see the importance of what you're getting at here.
Yeah, right now, artificial intelligence it's still just computers following programs.
Hmm.
They're not conscious. They're not aware of themselves. They have no emotions. You can, have a conversation with an artificial intelligence program these days, and it can seem to understand what you're saying, and it can seem to be conversing back to you, but it's not aware of what it's saying.
Hmm.
Even though artificial intelligence right now has advanced greatly, it is still a computer. You're still talking to a computer. It is not a person. It is not conscious. But eventually, that's going to change.
Interestingly enough, in a little bit of a sidebar, I remember a couple years back, there was actually this big, news article going around where somebody had been, just talking to ChatGPT and pretending as if it was a romantic interest, like "I love you," that sort of thing. And the robot had started to pick up on this and was drawing upon past conversations from algorithms it had programmed me with, and the person just like believed it so much, and it was saying these crazy things. And
Right.
this was before the time people started to understand where AI was getting all these algorithms. So just kind of to back up your point there, it's, a difference between what it's programmed to say and then also that consciousness that you've been referring to. So,
Right. I mean, the chat programs these days can seem human.
hmm.
It seem like you're interacting with a real person,
Yeah,
but
you're
it's just a
arguing with
program.
it, you're asking it questions.
You can
Yeah.
form emotional attachments. Some people form emotional attachments to whatever they're chatting with, but it's still just a machine running a program. It is not real.
Hmm. Definitely. Have you been interested in this throughout your entire career, by the way? Have you been in many different positions throughout your life? So I'm curious to know how this has developed and, what exactly inspired you to start writing about this topic? I know you also wrote about many different other topics, some pirate adventures, for example. So, why this topic?
I've always, as a biologist, my background has been biology. I've taught biology for 30 years. And I've always been interested in the subject of intelligence, how intelligence arises from the brain.
Hmm.
That decades ago morphed into more of an interest in intelligence from a technological point of view,
Okay.
wanting to get into artificial intelligence and the computer technology, both from a software and a hardware perspective. So I have been interested in the subject of artificial intelligence for many years, and eventually that kind of evolved into an interest in how artificial intelligence is going to affect society in the future. And I've had several ideas for subjects related to that I wanted to write about. The Can You Rape a Robot book was the first book that I've completed on this subject.
Right, understood. It's interesting because you've written so many fiction books, and this is, one of your first nonfiction books, from what I understand. So, in terms of the writing process purely, what sorts of differences did you pick up on as you were changing directions like that?
Well, with the nonfiction, with the robot book, obviously, that required research and wanted to make sure I got my facts straight. But I've always had a creative side also, and I wanted to write purely fiction to express my creative side.
Mhm.
And so, obviously, when you're writing fiction, it's pure your imagination. You don't have to worry about facts, really.
Right, yeah, as long as it makes sense.
As long as it makes sense, yeah, and it's interesting and fun to read.
Hmm.
So that's the difference. The nonfiction, I want to make sure that my facts are straight, and with the fiction, I just want to tell a good story.
Right, definitely. And I see what you mean by that. You have some creative liberties with one version, the other one you have to back it up by fact as well. Another distinction there. So, yeah, definitely something to think about. And also, since we're on the topic of, the writing process and the writing world, this is a podcast for authors on mission, for example. So, for any aspiring authors out there who are interested in tackling such complicated topics like, AI ethics or anything in that realm, what advice would you give about making such technical material engaging and accessible and easy to relate to, while also thought-provoking? I guess in general, what sort of advice can you give to somebody following your footsteps?
Well, I taught college for on and off for about 30 years, so
Mm.
I come from the experience of having to simplify and distill down ideas. So I have to think from, like, when I would teach, I have to think from a student's point of view. Make sure that it's on their level and it's clear, concise, and understandable. And it's the same with, writing a book. You want to try to think from the reader's point of view and write to the reader. Don't write to yourself. You have to consider your audience. And you have to write to your audience. And if they're going to be the average person, especially the layperson who doesn't have the technical knowledge on this kind of subject, you have to get in their shoes or get in their head and think about what it is they are going to understand and what they are not going to understand. So you have to be clear, you have to explain yourself clearly, you have to know what you're talking about, because if you cannot explain something clearly, then you don't know what you're talking about. You don't understand it yourself.
Right.
So get in the head of your reader and try to think of what they will understand and what they will not understand, and write to the reader, write to your audience.
Right, right. And I see what you mean by that. You have to really think about who that audience is, what they're going to resonate with, just like teaching, just like being in college, like you mentioned. Yeah, so all of this considered, you just came out with Can You Rape a Robot, but I know that this probably isn't the end of the road for you. I'm wondering, what other exciting projects might you have on the horizon?
I've just completed a novel.
Okay,
It's called The Secret of the Dragon's Scale.
okay. So that could be something we're excited to check out pretty soon.
Hopefully it'll be out this summer. I'm in the process of trying to get it published. It's a pirate adventure,
Mm.
and I think it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Prior to this story, I wrote a novelette, basically a short story, which was also a pirate adventure called 15 Men, The Curse of the Aztec Treasure. That's up on Amazon. Can You Rape a Robot is also up on Amazon. And The Secret of the Dragon's Scale hopefully will be coming out soon as well. Other than that, I have other projects I've started on and that I want to get back to. I have been wanting to look at this artificial intelligence and the future of, robotics, the future of robots from a science fiction point of view. So I've got a couple of stories in the works that are science fiction based around this idea of what's the future going to be like once machines attain consciousness. There is also another story which I've started on. You can see the first the first chapter of it actually up on my website at StevenEisenbergAuthor.com. And that story is called Cassandra Time. And that's a science fiction story about a young woman who travels. She's a time traveler. She travels through time, and it's about her adventures as a time traveler. So that's another science fiction story I started. I want to work on further at some point also.
Understood. Yeah, no, I mean, that's something really cool to keep in mind and check out. So when people are ready to find out more, how can they get in touch with you? How can they be in the loop for when these are coming out?
Go to my website, StevenEisenbergAuthor.com. The books that are available are on there. You can read the first chapter of Cassandra Time on there also. Soon I will be putting up some more information about The Secret of the Dragon Scale. Or on Facebook, Steven Eisenberg Author on Facebook. I'm there too.
That's awesome. Okay, so everybody, we're going to put the links to all of that in the description box of this podcast today. So when we're finished up, you can go ahead and click on over, check it out, stay up to date. It's really cool that Steven you do go through all different types of topics, and you're really passionate and love each one. You have specific reasons for being so also, which is really, really awesome. So, anybody listening, you can find something you love within this, vast array of topics that he has.
A bunch of videos for my book and my other stories are also on YouTube, so you can look me up on YouTube and my YouTube channel and see all the stuff I've got there as well.
Awesome. Perfect. So we're going to put all of that in the description box. I'm wondering, do you happen to have a copy of one of your books with you right now, either Can You Rape a Robot or any of the other ones right now that we can show off to everybody?
There you go.
There it is. Really a dynamic photo right there. Very captivating. I'm wondering, did you have a hand to play in creating that cover?
This is a stock image, basically, with a little, retouching from me, a touching up of from me, and of course then I put the title and my name on it. So it's Can You Rape a Robot? Morality, Rights, and the Rise of Conscious Machines.
All right, awesome. It is really captivating. I could see how, anybody walking past it or even scrolling past it might stop and take another look. It's a, perfect way to catch attention and also give a good idea for what the book might be about. So yeah, that being said, I'm wondering, do you have any last bits of advice for the books today?
For aspiring writers, write what you enjoy, what you are really interested in. So write about things that you really want to say. Mm-hmm. But remember, write to your audience. Always keep in mind who your audience is.
Right. Yeah, I get that. Just like you said before, making sure you know who you're writing to, who's going to be reading the book. And, that's how you're going to resonate with them and ensure that they're going to keep reading and pick up more with your name on it too. So thank you so much for sharing that. Well, honestly, everybody, this has been an amazing conversation. I think we dived into a lot about the rise of, technology and AI and robots. And in addition to that, some really amazing writing topics. We cannot underestimate the importance of writing for your audience. And so, Steven, thank you so much for joining us today. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Well, thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Of course. And, again, your book really is exceptional. It raises profound questions that I think a lot of us are going to be thinking about even after this podcast ends. And to our listeners, if you are also interested in exploring these ideas even further, of course, please check out the links in the description box. Pick up your own copy of Can You Rape a Robot on Amazon. Learn more about Steven's work on his websites. And remember, if you're fascinated by the ethical implications of AI, or you're curious about science fiction stories in general, or maybe even interested in Steven's consulting work, you could always take a look there. Steven, I don't think we touched too much upon that consulting work. Would you mind sharing a little bit of light on that one?
I'm president of a company called Bridge to America Culture and Education Consulting. And we have a sister organization called the Princeton Academy of Language and Science. So what BTA Consulting does is we help foreign students apply to private schools and universities in the United States. So we advise them on the application process, help them with their applications and things like advise them on their essays, and the Princeton Academy also offers online English classes to foreign students. So that's one of the businesses that I do. And on the side, I write, and actually I'm trying to focus more on the writing right now.
Okay, well, yeah, good. I mean, first off, it's good that you are focusing on the writing. It seems that you have a true passion for that and a lot of different topics as well. But now everybody that you know that he does also do the consulting work, we can also check that out too, and you learn even more wonderful insights. So thank you for those links. Thank you for those references.
Actually, it was the teaching that got me into writing my pirate stories.
Okay. How so?
Through this business. I was teaching English classes. Actually, even though my background's in science, we have had foreign students who wanted to improve their English. And so I taught some English writing courses as well as literary analysis. In the literary analysis course, we read many books, one of which was Treasure Island. Which is a pirate story. So I was inspired first to write my 15 Men short story because we did Treasure Island, and I wanted to continue writing pirate stories. So that's what led to Secret of the Dragon Scale.
I love that. It's really cool that you can draw upon many different experiences to come up with new ideas. And, you really are excited about the pirate books. Everyone, please check that out when it's ready to go. Stay in touch. I'm looking forward to diving more about it. Maybe you should pop back on the podcast when it's out too, so we can, talk more about specifics of that one too.
I hope so. I'd be glad to.
Awesome. Well, again, to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this episode. Remember that Authors on Mission believes that becoming an expert isn't just about knowledge, it's about asking the right questions, challenging conventional wisdom, and that's something that Steven really shown us today. He does it beautifully. So join us next time as we continue our journey of learning from accomplished authors who are on a mission. And until then, everybody, keep reading, keep writing, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Thanks for listening.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.